Perhaps with the passage of time, Mike Pence will be remembered most of all not as the Vice President of the United States, but as the man who kicked off a movement of men implementing a rule of avoiding being alone with women that aren't your wife or significant other, the financial industry being the latest to latch onto this trend. Wall Street rule for the #MeToo era: avoid women at all cost. No more dinners with female colleagues. Don't sit next to them on flights. Book hotel rooms on different floors. Avoid one-on-one meetings. In fact, as a wealth advisor put it, just hiring a woman these days is an unknown risk. What if she took something he said the wrong way? Now, I think that last sentence warrants further examination. You see, this brings up an issue that doesn't get talked about. The fact that women are, on average, more likely to be offended by some innocuous comment. Remember that some women were so traumatized by James Damore's memo, they had to take the day off from work. When this story emerged on Bloomberg, former game show host and conservative pundit Chuck Woolery tweeted this out. On set at Universal, I asked a female producer to move out of the way so I could get to my seat on camera in 10 seconds live shoot. She didn't move, so I touched her on the shoulder to get her attention. She moved with 2 seconds to go live and then accused me of sexual assault. And remember this red pill extra moment in which this poor sod had a complaint made against him that remained on his permanent record because he had the audacity to ask a female co-worker what department she worked in.
For example, I was working in a Silicon Valley software company once, and I turned to was discussing some technical stuff with a lady who was working there at the company, and I was trying to explain a technical problem that I was having with programming, and then I stopped myself because I was under the impression that she was in the marketing department. So I stopped myself before getting too technical, and I turned to her and I asked her, "You're an engineer, aren't you?" And she said yes. And it turned out that was not an appreciated question for me to ask, because she got the impression that I should have known that she was an engineer to begin with, even though she was working in the marketing department. And so that incident turned up in my yearly performance evaluation. So I pursued that because it wasn't my intent to demean her in any way. I just wanted to check just to make sure that she could understand the technical content of what I was about to explain to her. And I appealed it through my project manager, who was a woman. And when that failed, my section manager, who was a woman. And when that failed, the division manager, who was a woman. And all 3 appeals failed. And the incident remained reported on my performance evaluation, and I just felt disappointed.
Yes, all these examples are anecdotes, and I don't think they are representative of the behaviour of most women in the workplace. But even if there is a small chance of running afoul of this type of behaviour, why risk it? After all, it's your job and potentially your career at stake. Across Wall Street, men are adopting controversial strategies for the #MeToo era, and in the process, making life even harder for women. Call it the Pence Effect after US Vice President Mike Pence, who has said he avoids dining alone with any woman other than his wife. In finance, the overarching impact can be, in essence, gender segregation. Ah yes, gender segregation. Women would never be in favour of that, would they? Except when faced with manspreading on a flight, like poor Kate Whitehead. 9 times out of 10, based on my extensive experience, obviously not a very scientific approach, flying cattle class, if a man is seated beside a woman, he will claim the armrest. Not only that, but his elbow will protrude slightly into the woman's seat space. Unless you are prepared to press your arm against the man's, which will allow you to feel the rise and fall of his breath and is, I feel, too intimate a connection with a stranger, then you have lost 2 inches of your seat. I hope that in the wake of the #MeToo movement, people will come to realise that the airline armrest is a gender political issue. The first airline to establish pink rows will have my custom. Well, the fact that men are on average bigger than women means they will take up more space and are more likely to protrude into your space. But then wouldn't the bigger problem be overweight people? Well, not if you're a self-absorbed female like Kate Whitehead that can't see past her female victimhood. But no doubt when pink roses are introduced, it will be cheered on by the media as a form of women's liberation. But men protecting themselves from false allegations at work, well, that's just harming women. And besides, you won't get away with it, according to Stephen Zweig, an employment attorney with Ford Harrison. No relation. If men avoid working or travelling with women alone or stop mentoring women for fear of being accused of sexual harassment, those men are going to back out of a sexual harassment complaint and right into a sex discrimination complaint. Well, of course you will. Now, this article is based on interviews with over 30 senior executives, so not exactly an exhaustive sample. But as the story states, this is hardly a single industry phenomenon, as men across the country check their behaviour at work to protect themselves in the face of what they consider unreasonable political correctness, or to simply do the right thing. Yes, you see, conforming to the standards of the most easily offended female is now considered doing the right thing. To the point about not being a single industry problem, remember late last year I reported on an article written by the owner of an IT firm titled, "Why Should We Hire Women?" Here's a much younger me from December last year. Now, the author says that he consulted business owners and friends in his field who are responsible for hiring in various companies, and here's how they said they deal with this hysteria in the workplace. We will probably not hire women if they have to work together with men. And further, we have to consider gender segregation at the workplace as a next step. So we hire women only for positions where we can make a team out of them, and where we have to hire a spot in the male-dominated parts, we hire additional men. One of my colleagues from a US tech company gave, for me, a more horrific answer when I asked him about this notion. We are considering to drop our female staffers in the non-support teams. This way we can eliminate the risk, and from the outside, it looks like we just have a 90-10 split, which is low but not unreasonable for a tech company. He goes on, I think this is a shocking conclusion, but I have to say it makes perfect sense when I heard their reasoning. Even an unproven or false allegation can cost a company a significant sum of money. For some businesses, it could even mean bankruptcy because clients could drop them. They can't bear the expensive legal fees, or the media outrage kills their reputation. And I don't know anyone who's willing to take that kind of risk. Adding to that, the risk of possible pregnancy that some call for sick leave when they have their period, and the whole depiction of women in the mainstream media, and you have the perfect mix for high risk, high cost, low reward. Officially, we will of course never promote this. If somebody asks about stuff like that, we will just say that the teams can work better this way. But we don't risk our core team that makes money just to fulfill a quota. Google and co can do that and cripple themselves in legal affairs. Now, the next part is potentially controversial for some, but it shouldn't be. It's just common sense. Why should we hire women? Well, it hurts me to say, but maybe we shouldn't if this is how women behave in today's world. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to hire someone that can potentially cost you more time and money, with the addition that you have to create special rules for all other employees. So let's have a look at some of the ways men are implementing the Pence rule on Wall Street. For obvious reasons, few will talk openly about the issue. Privately, though, many of the men interviewed acknowledge they're channeling Pence, saying how uneasy they are about being alone with female colleagues, particularly youthful or attractive ones, fearful of the rumour mill or of, as one put it, the potential liability. A manager in infrastructure investing said he won't meet with female employees in rooms without windows anymore. He also keeps his distance in elevators. A late 40-something in private equity said he has a new rule, established on the advice of his wife. An attorney, no business dinner with a woman 35 or younger. So it's not just men being paranoid. But thankfully, as the article notes, there are those brave men stepping up to the challenge. There are as many or more men who are responding in quite different ways. One, an investment advisor who manages about 100 employees, said he briefly reconsidered having one-on-one meetings with junior women. He thought about leaving his office door open or inviting a third person into the room. Finally, he landed on the solution. Just try not to be an asshole. Well, that's all well and good, but what if your female employee decides to be an asshole? But of course you should know by now how this article ends. Lisa Kaufman, Chief Executive Officer of LaSalle Securities, says that men have to step up and not let fear be a barrier. And presumably women don't have to step up and not act like snowflakes. So given the unintended consequences of #MeToo to date, where will we be in another year of #activism? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.